Hello everyone, my name is Nick Morris. I do SEO, focusing on local SEO in Adelaide. This is the first video in what I hope to be a video series looking at local SEO around Adelaide and South Australia. I'm going to be exploring different towns and suburbs and doing some analysis. And I just wanted to start off with this video to sort of set the stage, do some explanation up front, sort of set the stage for what things are going to be talked about later. And this you can perhaps refer back to if you want to learn a bit, learn what I'm talking about a bit more. So I'm going to be showing my screen over here. I've got my camera over here, so most of the time you'll see me looking this way. Excuse the side of my head, but I'll be referring to what's on the screen here and talking you through it. So a few major sort of developments within local SEO in the last few months, which makes this kind of a good time to be talking about this. So one of them is the local search ranking factors survey or study. I think these days it's every year. It's been going for several years, since 2008, and it's had various sort of custodians looking after it over those years at different websites, different companies. Currently it's with this guy, Darren Shaw, and his agency White Spark. They're the ones that are sort of looking after it now, maybe for the last couple of years. Here you go, since 2017. And it's a survey of industry professionals that focus on local SEO, about what's working. There's some analysis in there as well. In different years, there's been different amounts of sort of quantitative analysis. And then there's also a lot of qualitative commentary and survey kind of data from people working in the industry. So it's definitely something to pay attention to see, what things you should be doing to try and rank better within the local search results. And typically we're mostly talking about Google, particularly in Australia. Although this survey is not really specific to Google, but I mean, they're the dominant search engine for most countries. So it is mostly focused on Google. The other search engines sort of follow Google anyway, so it ends up being relevant for everybody really. I'll take you through it. And then there's another development that's also happened with a major Google ranking update focused on local, which is the biggest update in several years that really focusing on the local results specifically. And that was actually since this came out. So I'll just touch on what the industry believes that was targeting, that update, and how that relates to what's in this survey. It might be worth just mentioning briefly as well that how do people in the SEO industry get their information about what works? That's probably a good thing to add as well. So the search engines, mostly talking about Google here, of course, again, they publish various guidelines about what people should do. But that only takes you so far. There's a few different issues with that. It only takes you so far. It doesn't give you like a step-by-step on what to do. And it's heavily geared towards what they want you to do, not necessarily what's working. So that's certainly something you should be on top of. And industry professionals like myself, need to stay on top of what Google and the search engines are recommending and when that changes and why it changes. But that's, like I said, only a piece of the puzzle. There's a huge amount of information that they don't give you. They just kind of leave it up to you to figure it out or whatever. And there's just other things where, they just don't know. The search engines just don't know how to rank, this website or that website or this rank businesses for this topic. So they don't actually capture exactly what should rank. So there's basically ways that you can do your optimization whereby you can rank, even if perhaps you're not the very best business for that topic. But, as marketers, we're always trying to rank our businesses the best possible, even if it doesn't perhaps deserve to be the most best ranked business. But I mean, that's just part of business, isn't it? Sometimes you're going to get a better result than a business that might be better than yours or cheaper than yours, or have better reviews than yours. Our job is really to get the businesses that we're working on to be the top ranked, even if it's not the best actual business for that topic. And of course, Google is not going to help you with that if that's your objective. Their thing is to get the best ranked businesses ranked the best. But anyway, that just gives you a bit of an overview on that side of things. So there's two different ways that local SEO are broken down. There's what's known as the local pack, the map pack. It's had various names over the years. I'll just show you an example of that. So this is what we're talking about here. You'll do a search that Google thinks is for a local business. So I've done here pizza delivery Adelaide Hills, and it's showing me local pizza restaurants, local restaurants that serve that area. So you've got sort of a directory style set of listings here with business information, including like location data, sort of price kind of data, review data, some photos, and then over here on the right, you've got an actual map that shows you where those businesses are on the map. This actual format here is quite new. That used to be a sort of a map along the top with information underneath it on desktop. But this new kind of way of doing it is a bit new, and I don't know, it's better or worse, but it's different. Oh, one other thing I should notice is that I've got my browser set to dark mode. So usually for the average user, it'll be white in the background here, but I've got it set to black, which just means it uses less electricity and it can be a little bit easier on the eyes as well. I also just mentioned briefly that the top 3 or 4 results on any search are ads usually. So these days it's very difficult to tell, but it's got a tiny little AD mark on it, which just denotes that it's an ad. Anyway, so this is the local results, which is what this local pack part is. And the other part is the local organic results, which refers to basically localized website results, which is what you can see sort of underneath here. So it's not part of that map pack thing. It's kind of a different part of the algorithm, but it's still considered local SEO because obviously they're relevant to what we searched for, and it's something you have to optimize for as well. Okay, so let's go back over here, and we're just going to go through the sort of this table here at the top, which just gives the top ranking factors. And I'm just going to try to talk a little bit about those, give you a sort of brief overview as to what they're talking about there. As you can see, there's sort of a bunch of different things listed here, and then a score and a ranking and a score on the importance of each factor for optimization. So the top one here is the primary GMB category. So GMB is Google My Business. It actually just changed to, I think it's the Google profile or Google dashboard, I can't remember. But for years it was Google My Business, and you're going to find that most of us in the industry are still kind of attached to this terminology, GMB, Google My Business. So the primary GMB category is just Google lets you select a primary category for your business, and that's quite important for your ranking. And then you can also select a bunch of secondary keywords as well to go along with it. But the primary keyword is the most important. And as you can see here, it's been listed as the most important element, the most important thing for you to optimize. Now, how to pick the primary category? There's hundreds and hundreds of potential categories that you can pick. And there are also new ones being added all the time as Google kind of understands different industries or different sort of sub-disciplines within an industry, which might have different businesses that focus on those sub areas. So you you might want to sort of review it every now and then to make sure you still got the best category. You can look at what competitors are doing. If I go back to the results here, so this is probably the primary category here. It just says pizza. But if I drill down on an actual result here, Craver's Pizza Bar, this is what the primary category is: pizza restaurant. You can see it underneath the main business listing there. Now, it's just important to note that in different jurisdictions or different countries, or even maybe different areas within a country, you can see the same category being labeled differently within the actual search results. So that can make it a little bit more confusing. So just keep that in mind. And it also, in some ways, it might be the same category, but based on your research, or whoever's searching, based on the language they use in their search, it might also change the category, the way it's displayed, even though it's the same category as far as the back end is concerned. Anyway, there's a bunch of different tools out there you can use to try and search through different categories and figure out the best one to use. One of the tools I like to use is this one called plepper.com. And I've already opened up a search here for pizza. But basically, you just select your language, select your country, and then you do a search. Tick this to make sure it's a table, and it'll drill down it'll give you the full table, and then you can put in a keyword here, like I have done with pizza. And I just type that out. It's got them all here, and then put in a keyword pizza, and then it'll filter it down to just the ones that are relevant. This doesn't tell you the best offhand, but it sort of lets you see what's available, and then you can try and pick the one that's the most relevant to your business, the most relevant to the overall focus of your business, rather than specific part. But there's different ways you can go with it, but that's probably a good starting point as to which one to pick. So pizza delivery, pizza restaurant, pizza takeaway, similar, and have subtly different focuses, obviously. Another thing you can do is they've got this cool related categories thing you can click on here. That'll open a new tab, and you'll get something like this, where you can see different related categories and the occurrence percentage of those categories. It's got a table here. I plug it into Google Trends, which allows you to see sort of the popularity of that category as a search term over time, and also sort of related queries and stuff. So that is some additional information that can help you. The next one here is the keywords in the GMB business title. So this is kind of a controversial one. So the title they're talking about is this business name here, Craver's Pizza Bar, Jimmy's Restaurant. And when they're saying keywords, could refer to something like pizza bar, could refer to something like Euro Pizza, or even restaurant. Like if your restaurant was just called Craver's Pizza or something, then adding an additional word in there would be sort of what this is referring to. So basically, Google's sort of official position on this is that you're not allowed to put keywords in your business listing title if they're not in your actual registered business name. So if they're in your registered business name, then you're allowed to put them in. But if they're not, you're not meant to put them in. However, having said that, it's a huge advantage to your ranking if you do put them in there. So that of course creates an incentive for people to add keywords in their business name within Google. And I'm not saying that any of these businesses are doing that. These actually do look like it's part of the restaurant name. So they're probably doing the right thing as far as I can see. But there's certainly, you'll see plenty of examples. I'm not going to out anyone, but there's still plenty of examples you'll find as you're using Google, where it's obvious that they've put some keywords in there. And you can't exactly blame them. In some industries, it's difficult to even get results without doing it, because there's so many competitors are doing it and getting the boost from it. Now, there's some evidence that this most recent update that I'm going to touch on in a bit does some work to reduce that impact, but it's still a big problem. And I don't know, it's been a problem for years. Google must be aware of it because there's been lots of people in the industry complaining about it and bringing it up to them, and they don't seem too interested in addressing it, or it's not a high priority or whatever. So it is what it is. I usually recommend people to consider it, consider doing it, perhaps even, you know, if it's a new business, registering the business name with those keywords in just to cover yourself. If you want to stay on the high quality side, you wouldn't do it, but then yeah, you have to sort of look at what competitors are doing. There is an alternative option where you don't do it and then try to report the competitors that are doing it to try and reduce their advantage from doing it. But that is a bit tricky to do because it often doesn't stick. But, you know, that's a possibility. So, you know, it's worth mentioning. What else? Now, proximity of address to point of search. That basically just means how close your business is to the person who's doing the search. In most cases, well, it says point of search. So, I mean, that could be the physical location of the person searching. It could also be geographic keywords they use within their search. So, for instance, I put Adelaide Hills in that example search. So that could be a geographic kind of reference point. Oftentimes, particularly if it's a mobile search, well, most of the time Google is going to know your location, or at least approximately, if not exactly. And that could be from mobile data if they're using a mobile device, or it could be from other data that they have. They have, you know, complex web of data that they can use to determine location, you know, IP address and all sorts of things like that. So they're going to probably know your location, or the location of the searcher approximately most of the time, and they'll use that in putting together the search results. And that's what this refers to. And that's not really something you can change as a business because your location is where it is. You'll see it come up in some situations where, particularly like you might have the situation where you have a home-based business, but you want to register some kind of office somewhere. It could be like a virtual office or a serviced office or a co-working space, it can be sometimes. And in those cases, you might have some flexibility about where you're actually going to register that business, and that's where this might come into play. But there's other, there's factors. I mean, Google doesn't really want you to optimize this. That's kind of the point from their perspective. They just want it to be what it is. So, but it's quite a big factor. And this kind of relates to that. This excuse me. This proximity of address in the point of search to the point of search. Sorry, this physical address in the city of search is relevant to that as well. Additional GMB categories. So we went through the primary category already, and then you can add additional categories as well. So that's also quite an important factor. And you can use the same tools as before to try and select additional relevant categories. Numerical Google rating, so that's referring to these scores here. 4.3, 4.5, 4.3, all great, doing great jobs here. So that's an important factor. Completeness of GMB listings, so there's in your back end of your Google My Business dashboard, you'll find there's lots of different things in there that you can fill out. Different fields and things that you can fill information out in, including your categories, your sort of address information. There's services and products you can add in there. There's photos, there's a description. You can create a little kind of mini website sort of based on the local platform. There's short URLs. There's posting you can do, like regular posting that's sort of similar to Facebook posts or something, other social media posts. And they're also adding new features all the time. So you want to definitely be checking your listing, your dashboard, see what's available, and try and filling that out as much as possible. Inbound links to domain. This refers to other websites other than the website that you're working on, linking into your website. That's kind of part of more traditional SEO. But it also impacts your local SEO, your local pack as well. Keywords and native Google reviews. So that refers to the actual reviews that people are leaving. So people can actually leave a rating on its own, but also often people will leave an actual review as well. You can see here some snippets from some reviews here. You can see the ratings and the reviews. This little star thing here actually denotes the sort of local guide level of the person that left the review. So if you leave, if you have a Google account, a Google Maps account, and you leave reviews and ratings, you'll end up in their local guides platform. That's their local guides sort of program, if you like, Google. That's one way that they encourage people to actually add this data to Google. So things like reviews and ratings, but also correcting business information, checking that the business hours are correct, that the category is correct, that it's in this location or not, or it's it's proximity to other things. So I'm a member of the Local Guides program. I have quite a high rating. I can't remember what it is now, silver rating. So I've left hundreds and hundreds of reviews and thousands of photos to Google. So I get to be quite high in that program, and they've sort of gamified it to try and get people to add information, which that's how that gets done in the back end. But that's what that little star thing's about. Let's see. Spam listings, spam fighting. This is more referring to, well, this is not so much something that a typical business owner will do. It's more relevant to sort of agencies and professionals in the industry. But I mean, also individuals can do it too. And it sort of links back to what I said earlier about the keywords in the GMB title. That's a kind of a spammy technique, and you can, and that would come under the banner of spam fighting, which they've said here is basically there's plenty of spam on any kind of Google platform or any kind of marketing platform, really, where there's a boost to be had, where there's advantage to be had, you'll find spam, and Google Maps and Google local results is no exception to that. So one way that you can help your own rankings is by removing spam listings that rank above you. And you'll definitely come across both legitimate businesses who are kind of doing some spammy stuff and just completely spam listings that aren't legitimate at all. So that's one thing you can do. I don't think I'll go through all of these factors. You can probably come back here and look at this yourself. I'll put the links, all the links I'm talking about, in the description below, so you can refer to those there. Some of these other things I'm going to address in the other section in a second, but I'll just mention this one lastly. So keywords in the GMB landing page title. So that just refers to the landing page or the website that you've linked to from your listing. So that'll be this. So if I click on this website, it'll take me to the Crow's Pizza Bar website, and that's what it's referring to. So, well, I could maybe just open that up to show you. So I just clicked on that website, it's opened a new tab, and well, it's talking about this. The title is this thing up here, actually. In this case, they don't have any keywords in it, so actually, it's not the best example. So I've just opened the source code of this website quickly, and I'll for the page title. It's up here. So, well, that's to do with the way this website's, that's the way it's coded. If anyone knows the Crow's Pizza Bar, then maybe they can refer this video to them, but what they should be doing is adding a title in there and adding keywords like pizza restaurant. I mean, they're already ranked quite well. There aren't that many options in the Adelaide Hills for pizza delivery, so they're already ranked pretty well. But this can help them to do even better by putting some relevant keywords in here other than, well, they don't have any, so it's just showing the website address. But that's what that refers to. Okay, I'm going to just jump over to the other part, half of it here, the local organic ranking factors. This is more referring to, if we go back to my first example here, these web pages, so regular web pages. So there's that website for the Clovis Pizza Bar that I just was talking about. In this case, so the blue link is the page title. So it doesn't appear on the page itself, it appears in the source code like I was just showing you. And then usually it will appear in the tab here if it exists. Now, if it doesn't exist, or even in cases where it does exist, but Google doesn't think it's that useful or that relevant, they can actually rewrite it. And that's what's happened in this case. So for Clovis Pizza Bar, they don't have a title, and Google's gone ahead and picked Clovis Pizza Bar from somewhere, possibly from the Google My Business listing, or possibly from something else, maybe the domain. I'm not quite sure exactly where they got that from, but they have basically written the title in when one didn't exist and written it in as Clovis Pizza Bar. But usually you want to put this in yourself because it's very just basic, and you could put more information in there, like, for instance, Adelaide Hills, or other keywords that are relevant that can help you rank. So that's what we're referring to there, those sort of organic listings, the actual web pages themselves, as opposed to what we were talking about before, which was these listings, which is kind of like a directory style setup from Google. Okay, so again, we're talking about inbound linking domains. So that's other websites linking to your website. It's a big part of general SEO, and that's one way to think about this kind of local organic. Is it's sort of a cross between general SEO or more global SEO, traditional SEO, and strictly local SEO. So those listings, those maps listings we were looking at, it's kind of a cross between the two of them. So it's a bit localized, but it's dealing with individual web pages. And you want to get other websites to link to your website. Volume of quality content on the entire website. This is something that business owners often get wrong because, well, it depends on the industry, but in some industries, people are focused on perhaps more visual elements, or they just don't really understand that adding a bunch of content is important. And even as sophisticated as search engines are these days, they're still, well, they can in fact read words in images and stuff, but they don't typically do it on every website because it would just be too much processing power. So you can do that within certain tools and whatnot, but for the most part, they want text. What they really want, that's the thing that they want to see, so that they can understand what a website's about, because that's easy for them to process. That's what the whole thing's built on. So the more text you can provide with relevant keywords, relevant content in there, the better. So that's what that refers to. Internal linking across the website, so making sure your pages within your website are interlinked. Topical keyword relevance, so that's across the website. That's kind of making sure that your the keywords you're using across the website are sort of consistent, so it doesn't just jump around to all these different very different topics. Like, for instance, if you're you looks like a pizza delivery website or a pizza restaurant, and you've got some pages about your pizzas, and then you've got pages about, I don't know, the best shoes to buy or something. That seems very disparate. It's going to seem weird to Google, like, hey, what's going on here? So you don't want to have very disparate topics, and you want to make sure there's relevance and continuity there. Yeah, so like geographic keyword relevance. So that's not just the topics, so not just the product, what your product's about, but the geographic side of things. So relating it back to the geography of the situation, since we're talking about local search here. They're again talking about the page title having the keywords in there. We've already addressed that. Okay, this kind of relates to that one above here. So it's about relevance, it's about sort of focus on particular topics. Okay, there's also this next one here, keywords in the anchor text, that goes to, oh, sorry. Yeah, keywords in the anchor text of inbound links. So that's the links coming in, not just, you know, the quality and the number of those links, but also the what's known as the anchor text, which is the link text. Yeah, so something like this. When you're clicking on these, you're going to a different web page. So that's a link, and the anchor text is the text that's used in that link. So in this case, local, organic, individual ranking factors. And you want that to be relevant to the page that it's being linked to. Often you're not going to have control over that because it's other websites that are doing the linking, but it is relevant to ranking. How are we going for time here? I am probably going to, let's see, what's this quality? That's about quality. So I'm probably going to leave it there. So these other ones here, these next three all talk about the quality of links, and that's harder and harder to explain simply. And it's more advanced as well. So once you get into more specifics about links, it becomes more advanced. That's kind of out of the scope of what I want to cover here. So I'll leave it there. If you want to read more about this, then I'd certainly recommend coming and checking out the full survey. So you can look at all the different factors, and then they've got various experts giving their advice. So take a look for the link to this there's a survey in the description below. Before we sign off, I wanted to address that other piece, that other recent piece that I mentioned, which is a big algorithm update, specifically around local search. So the biggest update they reckon in the last, I think they said sort of 5 years odd. Typically with these updates, I mean, Google makes hundreds of small updates, or hundreds of updates total over the course of a year. And so it could be, you know, one a day, or certainly at least one a week, probably several per week. And most of them are going to be small. Some, you know, they're going to be varying sizes. Most of them are going to be small. Sometimes there'll be a few big ones per year. And often those big ones will address, well, sometimes they address sort of everything. I mean, I mean, yeah. Let me say it again. So usually they're focused on specific things these days. So none of them are really focused on everything. Usually they're focused on different things. And then as to, there's a question as to how many websites they're going to affect, or what. They often talk about what portion of queries, like search queries, does this affect? And then depending on the specifics of what it's addressing, it might affect different types of SEO, like more local SEO, specifically local businesses, or it might be more focused on other types of websites. For instance, there was another biggish update towards the end of last year, the end of 2021, which was very focused on sort of affiliate marketing websites, so websites that are sort of linking off to things like Amazon and trying to get money, commissions when they send people off, and particularly, I mean, those sorts of websites write a lot of reviews, and this update was kind of particularly focusing on those kind of review websites. So it's not that relevant to local, it's not that relevant to e-commerce, it's not that relevant to a bunch of different industries, but it was just kind of just focused. And anyway, this particular update I'm going to talk about here was more focused on local, and it was specific, you know, specific to local, and the biggest local update in a while. And I'm just going to go briefly through this article here from Sterling Sky, which is one of the biggest, most well-respected agencies within the local SEO space. Now, I think it was them, Sterling Sky themselves, that actually gave this update a name. So often these updates are usually not announced by Google. Sometimes they are. Occasionally they'll announce them in advance. and but for the most part, they're not announced. They may be sometimes confirmed. So usually it's the SEO industry that discovers these when they see sort of a bunch of people kind of notice movement in the rankings of the websites that they're tracking or working on, and they'll kind of get together and they'll figure out whether there's been an update, and there's tools and stuff tracking this stuff as well that can give information on that. So sometimes Google will, after the fact, when asked, they'll confirm that there's been an update, but usually most of the time they won't say in advance. And then there's, the industry somehow through some sort of organic process, they'll come up with a name, usually to refer to the update. And that's how it gets used in reporting and whatnot after that. And in this case, I think it was Sterling Sky that came up with this one called the Vicinity Update, which reason being is that they've, and other people have confirmed that it's was focused on vicinity factors. So that's around sort of localization, which is something that we touched on a little bit in the ranking factors we were talking about. So that was when we said proximity of address to point of search, physical address and city of search, that sort of stuff. Yeah, so it's kind of around that. So, I mean, the gist of it is that they have made businesses less relevant the further away from the address you go. So this map here actually is some cool, there's quite a few services that offer this kind of ranking map for local, where they'll, so the business would be, well, you can do it in different ways, but one way of doing it is you would have your business, the one you're focusing on, in the center of a grid like this. And then basically this grid allows you to see how they rank the further away from the business it gets. So you can see the example here, you'd expect the business to be sort of right in the middle here. And these little numbers show where they're ranking at each of those points. Like if, it's simulated, it's not, it's not from real data, but it's simulating. If you'd done a search from that exact point, you would have ranked number 1. But then now if you go out a little bit to this grid, the next sort of layer of the grid, it's going to be a 2 or a 3 or a 3 or a 3. It's a 4 over here. And then the next layer out, you can see 3s and 4s and 5s. And then they're also color coded. So the higher the rank, the further away, the further down the rankings you go. Got 10s and 8s and 9s coming in. And basically before the update, you were able to rank, if you had all your sort of optimization factors in place, you were able to rank for a wider area. Whereas now they've made it so that it's hard to do that, basically. And I'm not quite sure if anyone knows why they did that. Usually we don't find these things out, but it's been done. So they have various usually various justifications, which usually revolve around making the search results better. Thus, the skeptical among us, or the jaded among us, industry insiders, will say perhaps that they're trying to help their bottom line in certain ways, and you can kind of see how this could relate to that. Because if it's harder to rank for a wider area, maybe that means that more businesses have to use ads or something to rank in, to target that wider area. But who knows? Anyway, so that's the gist of it. I think there's a okay. So this just shows a comparison. So what they've done is there's one of these grids as a before and after the update happened. So it happened in sort of early December. Here's a November 18 grid, and you can see there's a lot of green all over. So this business in Toronto, I guess, was ranking quite well in quite this whitish grid area. And then now for the same grid, after the update, you can see it's been reduced somewhat. And of course, this will affect different businesses, different amounts, depending on how well optimized they are and how much competition there is in that space, etc., etc. But yeah, that's the basic of it. Let me just see if there's anything else to mention. No, I think that's the basis of it. So there was some talk sort of earlier on that, like I said, the keyword in the business name might have been reduced, might have reduced that, but I think, well, I think it did coincide with some impact in that, but it may or may not have been a part of this update. It might have just been a coincidence that they did in fact take some action on that at the same time, or it may have in fact been part of the update. But my sense of it in seeing later reporting is that it wasn't as big as people thought initially. So it is mostly about this vicinity side of things. But yeah, there's not too much more to say on that, and it's still kind of early days to know what to do. If there's anything in particular we can do to sort of overcome this challenge, or if it's just going to be sort of more of the same type of optimization. So that's something I can address later as the industry sort of figures that out. But I think that's enough for this video. So I think I've done sort of 45 minutes or something there. So it's probably a little bit longer than I intended, but hopefully the information's been good, and you'll be able to sort of come back to this and refer to it if you need an overview of Local SEO ranking. And I'm going to be addressing these sorts of ranking factors as I go through this series, where I'm going to be looking at local businesses and just doing some analysis, some audits, if you like, and just doing some exploration of local businesses and seeing what they have to offer. So I'll sign off and see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.